You're listening to the micro version of the Savage Lovecast, www.savagelovecast.com.
If you're stuck in a relationship quandary, or if you're looking for sexual harmony, well, there's nothing you can't ask on the Savage Lovecast.
So there's porn on the internet still. Even in our post-Fosticesta dystopia, you can find porn on the internet. Now, I've talked about Fosticesta before. We've talked about it a lot, and I don't want to belabor it, but a quick refresher. Fosticesta was signed into law last year. It imposes fines and prison time on owners and managers of tech companies whose platforms are, whether the owners know it or not, being used by sex workers. The law is so broadly worded that it not only made it impossible for sex workers to share information online about safety, to find clients, and crucially to warn each other about dangerous clients, it prompted major tech companies to start censoring sexual content just to be on the safe side, to protect themselves, not to protect sex workers. The law is so broadly and vaguely worded, as Vox pointed out at the time that it passed, that tech companies immediately began pulling down all sorts of sexual content. It's why we don't have Craigslist personals anymore. It's why Tumblr banned adult content. It's also why sex work is now more dangerous than it was a year ago. Fosticesta pushed sex workers off the internet and back onto the streets, making consensual sex work more dangerous, not less dangerous, and making people doing sex work more vulnerable to sex traffickers and violent pimps, not less vulnerable. Even the police, no friends of sex workers, say that the passage of Fosticesta has made it harder for them to find and help people who are being forced to do sex work against their will. Now, if you'll indulge me, I'm going to rant for a little bit about how Fosticesta seems to be impacting us here. Facebook no longer allows ads for quote-unquote adult content. You can still buy ads on Facebook for family planning and contraception, but those ads must focus on, and I quote, the contraceptive features of the product and not on sexual pleasure. Facebook didn't have to do that to be in compliance with Fosticesta, banning ads for adult content, banning family planning and contraception ads that might mention sexual pleasure. But again, tech companies have begun censoring sexual content since the passage of Fosticesta. And as a result of the ban on adult content, we can no longer advertise Hump on Facebook or Instagram, which Facebook also owns. And this is bullshit. Hump, our little porn film festival now in its 14th year, features short films made by amateurs. You know how a lot of people say they dislike porn because it's dehumanizing? Not the porn at Hump. The porn you see at Hump is very deeply humanizing porn. Hump films are made by friends and lovers, and the films range from comedic shorts to animation to erotica to softcore to hardcore. And our Facebook business account was shuttered, and we are no longer allowed to advertise or promote or let people know about Hump on Facebook or Instagram. Hate, violence, murder, genocide in Myanmar, all of that has a home on Facebook. But human beings, friends and lovers, expressing their affection for each other and enjoying themselves with their genitals out sometimes, no, we cannot have that. And that's not what we were putting on Facebook. We weren't putting Hump films on Facebook. We were just advertising screenings of the Hump Film Festival on Facebook. So while there's porn all over the internet, we can't advertise our screenings in movie theaters. Hump films are never released online because I don't know why exactly. To be honest, Hump's mission at the start wasn't to normalize the diversity of human sexual expression, as I like to say on this show. When it comes to human sexuality, variance is the norm, and the sooner people get that through their heads, the happier and more content they're going to be and less conflicted. And Hump's mission at the start wasn't to show all the diverse ways we express our gender. We wanted Hump to be entertaining. And it was, and it still is. But it quickly became clear that our dirty little film festival, in part because it was entertaining, actually was helping to normalize the diversity of human sexual expression and gender expression. Whether you're gay, trans, intersex, asexual, kinky, dom, sub, male, female, non-binary, rich, poor, non-monogamous, monogamous, or straight, you were welcome at Hump, up on the screen and in the audience. And speaking of the audiences, one of my favorite things about being at a Hump screening is watching the audience and not the films. I've already seen the films like hundreds of times by the time we open the festival. And I watch the audience, and there's this amazing thing that happens. You know, at a Hump screening, there are 20, 24, 25 films, 5 minutes or less, gay, straight, queer, genderqueer, trans, kinky, vanilla, all over the map. And the audiences are diverse. And what you see when you look out at the audience is you see straight guys watching gay porn. You see gay guys watching cunnilingus on the big screen. You see vanilla people watching kink porn. You see cis people watching porn made by trans people, not for cis people necessarily, but to express themselves. And there's this thing that you see, which is for the first, third of the screening, people are kind of knocked back in their seats. They have the wind taken out of them because all they see is what's not theirs, what's different. Not my preferred sex partners, not my kind of gender expression, not the kinks that I enjoy, whatever. They just see the differences and people are a little knocked back in their seats. They have wind knocked out of them. But then this thing happens about a third of the way through, half of the way through. Nobody's knocked back in their seats anymore. Everybody's cheering and clapping for every film. Even when a film comes along that's really different from all the films they've seen before, people are just psyched and into it and no longer having the wind knocked out of them, no longer being thrown back in their seats. And I think what happens at a hump screening, particularly a packed one, is there's just this moment where the audience flips, where suddenly they go from only being able to see what's different and what's not theirs to being able to see in each film what is theirs and what's the same. Because under that thin veneer of difference around sexual orientation, gender expression, kinks, under that is everything that we share that is the same. Desire, passion, connection, intimacy, vulnerability, a sense of humor about ourselves and our sexualities and our genders. All of that is the same. And people click into it. They get it. And there's this moment when you watch the audience where you can see that happen. So when people found out about Hump and they'd get to Hump, even if they came just to, be tantalized or scandalized, they also got this rare look into the passions and desires of those who might be different than they are. When you watch porn at home sitting in front of the computer, you only click on what you want to see. When you come to Hump, we're clicking for you. And that resulted often in people having this kind of epiphany, particularly straight people who came to Hump. And by banning our ads, by making it harder for people to find out about Hump, it makes it harder for people to have that epiphany, harder for people to create and experience a different kind of porn, but also harder for people to realize that, under that thin veneer of difference, we are all the same-ish. Anyway, it seems incredibly hypocritical to me to ban advertising for a thing as good and fun and, for some people, healing as Hump because you want to keep information about this particular kind of porn. Frankly, a kind of porn I think is a better kind of porn than most of the porn you can find online. You want to keep information about that kind of porn, ads about that kind of porn, off the internet, off Facebook and off Instagram, which for now means off the internet. With this in mind, I want to ask you all to do me a favor. I want to ask everybody to follow Hump on your social media platforms and sign up on our website for our mailing list, humpfilmfest.com. So you can hear about Hump when it's coming to your town, get Hump updates, find out about new events. And unfortunately, to do that, we need you to follow us on Facebook and Instagram, but also Twitter at Hump Film Fest. We can't advertise on Facebook or Instagram right now, but we are stuck with Facebook and Instagram right now, and we're relying on you. We're asking you to help us bring Hump to new audiences by sharing about Hump on your social media platforms, since we are no longer allowed to advertise Hump on those same social media platforms. All right, coming up on today's show, on the micro edition of the Savage Lovecast, tons of your Qs, lots of my As, and Jennings Brown, a reporter for Gizmodo, joins us to talk about a recent guest on the Savage Lovecast who apparently lied to us about a whole bunch of things, and on the Magnum extra Q&A for you this week. All that coming up on today's show.
This episode of the Lovecast is brought to you by the good folks at Squarespace. They make it easy to build a beautiful website, blog, or online store. Head on over to squarespace.com/savage for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use the offer code SAVAGE to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.
This episode of the Savage Lovecast is brought to you by Blue Apron. Check out this week's menu and get $60 off at blueapron.com/savage. This episode of the Savage Lovecast is brought to you by OpenFit, offering streaming workouts for every goal. Change the way you work out today and get a special extended 30-day free trial membership when you text my code SAVAGE to 303030.
Hi, Dan. I'm a 20-year-old lady living in the Pacific Northwest, and I'm faced with a dilemma. My best friend, who is also 20, recently eloped with someone who she's only known for about 6 months total. And not only did she marry someone who I consider to be a perfect stranger, but I found out through Facebook. Another important thing to know is that he has a 4-year-old daughter whose mother isn't in the picture. My friend has a history of rushing into dating extremely questionable and at times abusive characters, and because of this, I don't know if I trust the person she's married. She lives far away, so I've not been able to meet her husband or the little girl, so I don't know how to feel about them. Because of all of this, I've more or less distanced myself from her because we're going down drastically different paths, but she's guilting me for doing so. Am I wrong for distancing myself from this person who I believe is making, quite frankly, insane decisions without talking to anyone in our friend group or her family? Or should I just be accepting of this new lifestyle? I really don't want to lose one of my closest friends, but I really just don't know how to navigate the situation.
I don't want to condescend to you or appear to condescend to you, because I don't believe what I'm about to say is condescending to you about your age, but I don't want to appear to condescend to you about your age. You're 20 years old. You say that this is your best friend. By the end of the call, she's been downgraded from best friend to one of my closest friends, which is something that you say about someone who isn't your best friend. But let's say she's your best friend or has been for a while or was once. Presumably you've known each other for more than a couple of years if you're besties and she's among your closest friends. So presumably you've known this person since you were in high school. And one of the things that often happens to us in young adulthood, doesn't always, and it doesn't have to, and it doesn't need to, but often it's the case that in young adulthood, after high school, into college, after college, some of the friends that we made in high school or college, some of the people we were particularly close to, often because we were confined to close quarters with that person, those relationships, those friendships fall away. There is a distancing process, and sometimes it's conscious choices. Sometimes it's they went to one school, you went to another, you form new friendships, they form new friendships. And although you remember each other fondly and you're grateful for having been friends and still regard each other as friends, although less in each other's lives than in the past, there's this falling away. And that could be what's happening here. You two are, as you said, going off in different directions. She's making different choices. Perhaps she is making choices that you disapprove of or you question the soundness of, which is disapprove of adjacent. So what do? Well, you're pulling away because why? Because you don't think she should have married this dude after 6 months. Perhaps you're angry that you had. Of course you're angry. You mention it, and I think you mention it because you're angry about it, although you don't emphasize your anger, that you had to find out about this from fucking Facebook, that this person that you considered your best friend eloped with someone, married someone, without not seeking your permission. She didn't need your permission to do that. She is an adult, but informing you, giving you a heads up, relying on you perhaps the way she should have. Because if she's made questionable choices in the past about men, if she's gotten involved with shitty dudes, you say even abusive dudes, then yeah, maybe she's one of those people who should run her relationships past a friend group so that if she's missing the red flags, her friends can point them out to her. That is what friends are for. And so she didn't rely on you the way you believe she should rely on you if she regards you as a best friend or a close friend, an intimate friend. And that hurt. And so you have an absolute right to pull away. You also have an absolute right to say, I think that was a stupid thing to do. You also have an absolute right to get on the phone with her and even after the elopement say, so tell me about this dude. And have you thought about this? And oh, hey, that thing you just told me about that dude that you are married to now suddenly and ill-advisedly, and I would have advised you against it had you asked for my advice in the run-up to it. That thing that you just mentioned is kind of a red flag. It's similar to red flags that you missed in previous relationships. But if your friend doesn't want to hear it, she doesn't want to hear it. And there's evidence that she doesn't want to hear it because she didn't tell you about it in advance. She didn't give you an opportunity to try to talk sense to her. So she may not want to hear whatever sensey things you want to say. You have a right to pull away. Your friend can guilt you for that. She has an absolute right to say that's a shitty thing to do, just as you have a right to say that was a stupid thing to do. But I would leave her with this. if indeed you do pull away, I'm here for you. When and if you need to talk to someone about this or anything else, I'm still here for you. I can't be there for you in the way I was in the past, just geographically, but I'm still here for you. So give me a call sometime if you want to talk. Put the ball in her court. That'll assuage your guilt. Also, it'll let her know that if this relationship does come to shit, that she still has friends she can turn to for help and advice and counsel. And then maybe she will learn her lesson and turn to those same friends for help and advice and counsel before she enters into her next relationship.
Hi Dan, I love you so much. However, I need to ask you, you are forgetting non-binary far too often when referencing especially young relationships, boyfriend and girlfriend. Let's please just remove those terms altogether and start referring to them as lovers.
You know, I frequently, when I mention girlfriends or boyfriends, will toss in NB friends as well. Boyfriends, girlfriends, NB friends. But I'm not going to stop saying boyfriend and girlfriend. And I'm not going to use lovers in place of boyfriend and girlfriend. Lover has a different meaning in some contexts, can have entirely different connotations. People can interpret that differently. And it makes you sound like Pepe Le Pew if you run around referring to everyone's boyfriend or girlfriend or NB friend as their lover. So just going to have to buckle up, endure, boyfriend, girlfriend. Thank you for the call. We always want to remember our non-binary identified friends, and I will use girlfriend, boyfriend, and NB friend. Try interchangeably as often as I can for representation's sake. But boyfriend and girlfriend are still terms that I am going to sling around, toss around on this program.
Hi, Dan. So I have probably like a good problem to have, which is that I'm having sex with two people right now, and I'm having like the most sex I've ever had in my life, and it's awesome. But one of these people is a friend who's in my same graduate program, and it randomly sort of happened. Like we got drunk together one night and just had like wild, crazy animal sex, and I've been hooking up ever since. And it's probably the best sex I've ever had in my life. It's really great. And then right after that started, I met this other guy who I have clicked with so well, more so than anyone that I've dated in like years. And I enjoy spending time with him so much, and we have so much fun together. And we recently had sex for the first time. And like it was fine, like it was adequate, but like the same passionate energy wasn't there. And it was really hard not to compare it, which made me really feel weird and sad. And I definitely still plan to keep seeing this guy, but I worry that at a certain point, like he's going to want to be exclusive. And I like him a lot, and I can see that happening, but I don't want to go up sleeping with this other guy, especially if I'm like giving it up for mediocre sex. And I'm sure, as we get to know each other more, maybe the sex will become better, and that would be great. But yeah, it's hard to give up really good sex, even if it's for like a person who might be better. But now I find myself when I'm fantasizing about my friend that I'm sleeping with and not this guy that I like that I'm sleeping with. And if, the choice comes between it, I want to sleep with my friend, even though that's definitely like we wouldn't date each other. That's going nowhere. But I tend to also have a thing for sort of like unavailable people. So I don't know if this is me getting scared about the idea of being in a relationship. I have been single for like 5 years. So that is kind of scary for me, even though I really like this guy. Or I don't know if it's just like, animal impulse of like not wanting to have good sex. So I would love to hear your thoughts. Thank you.
I would definitely file this one under good problems to have. You're fucking somebody that you really enjoy fucking, that you're friends with, so it's somebody you also like. And then there's this other guy that you click with emotionally and enjoy spending time with, and you are seriously considering dating, and you've only fucked that guy once and the sex wasn't great. But you've got two really good guys, a friend that you have great sex with, and somebody you're kind of sort of casually dating right now that you have a great time with, but the sex wasn't there the first time. Now, sometimes people catch a groove. Sometimes the sex is great from the start. Sometimes people just click. And sometimes it can take a little bit for two people to ramp up, to carve a groove in each other, to find what works, to really relax. Maybe he was nervous. Maybe he was tense because the emotional stakes are higher. Or maybe you were nervous or you were tense because the emotional stakes are higher in this relationship. So the sex feels more consequential, and you both went into it being a little bit more self-conscious about it and more inhibited about it. And that made the sex less awesome. And that could be a problem that works itself out over time. You know that expression, cross the bridge when you come to it? Well, sometimes you don't need to suck that dick till you come to it either. You're in a bit of a race here. A race between this guy asking you, the guy that you like, the guy with whom the sex wasn't great, asking you to go exclusive, to be his girlfriend or boyfriend or non-binary friend, and the sex getting good. If by the time he asks you that, the sex is good to great, and you're fantasizing more and more about him and less about the sex you could be having with Mr. Awesome Sex, then going exclusive, becoming sexually exclusive with the guy that you clicked with emotionally, that you could see as a partner, won't be a problem that you have. A good or bad problem. It just won't be a problem at all. So only time will tell. If by the time he asks to go exclusive, the sex still is lousy and unsatisfying, and all you can think about when you're masturbating is the other guy, don't go exclusive and probably end the relationship. It's important to prioritize sexual compatibility and sexual satisfaction in a long-term relationship. Anybody who listens to this show should know that. Even if I didn't hammer away at that point, how many people call in and they begin with everything is great and I love them, the relationship is perfect, and you get to the but, and the but is sex. And making that exception for lousy sex sabotages the relationship in the long term. There's only so far you can kick that can down the road before you realize, as you march down the road, that can was a box of nitroglycerin, and it explodes and destroys your relationship. Prioritize sexual compatibility and sexual satisfaction. Again, that doesn't mean the sex is always awesome from the start. Sometimes it takes a little bit of work. Sometimes it takes a little bit of effort for two people to really click. And someone who's great at sex with someone that they don't care about, even if they're kind and decent and solicitous and they care about how that person feels and they want that person to have a good time, having sex with someone that they don't care about, they don't see as a long-term partner, they don't care about in that way, can be disinhibiting. That can allow someone to really relax and be themselves sexually. And then they turn around and have sex with somebody they imagine they could have a future with, and they seize up and they get very inhibited. Because, again, the emotional stakes are so much higher. And it takes time for some people to relax and begin to enjoy someone and to be more sexually uninhibited with someone that they care about and see as a long-term partner. That could be the case here. That could happen here, in which case, again, there are no problems. There's just really great things happening in your life. You've got this great friend that you have great fuck buddy sex with, and you have this good guy that you really like that you see as boyfriend and or husband or non-binary bond material in the long run, and the sex could get better. So just keep at it. Just keep fucking both these guys while dating only one of them, and in time you will know what and who you should do.
Hey, do you need to build a website for your business or for a creative or political project you have going on? Building a website does not have to be tedious or unpleasant. It can be easy, and with Squarespace, it can actually be fun. My husband had to put together a politically oriented site quickly, and guess what? He used Squarespace and found it to be super easy and adaptable. True story. Squarespace makes it a breeze to crank out a beautiful, professional-looking website or blog, or even an online store. They have templates that were created by world-class designers that you can just drop in and it looks good right away. And they have built-in e-commerce so you can sell stuff. There's nothing to patch or upgrade, and if you need help, they have 24/7 support. You can make it yourself so easily and make it stand out with Squarespace. Head on over to squarespace.com/savage for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, use the offer code SAVAGE to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. That's squarespace.com/savage, and use the offer code SAVAGE.
Damian Sendler was a guest on the Savage Lovecast last May. We had him on after stumbling over a study. We had him on for a What You Got segment. That's where we invite sex researchers and scientists on to discuss the results of their recently published studies, and he had brought out a study about erotic asphyxiation, a study that found something a little counterintuitive, that people who accidentally killed a sex partner during consensual kinky choking play were punished, he said, less severely than people who murdered someone by choking them to death. Joining me today to let me know that Damian Sendler is not who he told us he was, Jennings Brown. He's a reporter for Gizmodo and host of the podcast The Gateway. Hey, Jennings, how are you?
Hi, Dan. I'm doing well.
So, Damian Sendler had a long list of credentials and associations and degrees that I rattled off when we introduced him. Damian wasn't who he told us he was.
That is true, yeah. It took me, looking into Damian, took me down a weird rabbit hole, and it was very difficult to fact check. He makes a lot of claims, and he's appeared in a lot of media outlets, and one of those being Savage Lovecast. And so as much as I am happy to be on the show, I'm sorry it's under these circumstances. But yeah, I called you last week because I wanted to kind of get an understanding of his process of getting on the show, to see if he reaches out, if people reach out to him, and helped me understand what he does.
Now, it was published in an obscure journal. It was republished at the National Institutes of Health. And we had been talking last spring about asphyxiation, or erotic asphyxiation play, which just, point of order here, it's very dangerous. It's not something that I can recommend that anybody do. People who do erotic asphyxiation solo have died at a regular clip. It seems we're always hearing about people who've engaged in autoerotic asphyxiation, including people who know better, people who are themselves have been kink educators and died. And he claimed he had done this study looking at people who had done erotic asphyxiation with partners and killed someone, and published the results of this study and claimed to be all these things, and he's not. Just run us through Damien Sandler's fabrications or fibs about who Damien Sandler is.
Well, if you look him up online and you read about him on Vice, Playboy, Men's Health, Women's Health, Bustle, Insider, all of these publications that he has been quoted in, it says that he studied at Harvard Medical School and Columbia and NYU, and sometimes the language is foggy, but when I asked him point blank, he told me that he got his MD and his PhD from Harvard Medical School, that he had a gold medal of service from President Obama, that he was the youngest elected member of the American Psychiatric Association and all these other psychological associations. I mean, it was just like this laundry list, and he looks like one of the most accomplished 28-year-olds in medicine. But just some simple Googling, I started looking into him and realizing that it didn't really check out. Mm-hmm. So then I asked if he wanted to come in. He seems pretty eager to talk to media. So, he met me and I had a pretty open mind, but he immediately started talking about just all of these sort of pop psychological ideas that just kind of set off some red flags. And then, he was just telling me these blatant lies that I just kind of checked with basic Googling initially. Mm-hmm. And then, I finally asked him about it, and he sort of deflected. And then, after that conversation and after, he had lied to me so many times, I looked further into him and just kind of fell down the rabbit hole of this character that he sort of created that has gone and shared all of these really unusual studies about paraphilias like bestiality, necrophilia, and
choking.
And they're sensitive topics where we need more research, but we need it to be done carefully and by people who aren't lying about their credentials and possibly falsifying their research.
You shared a tape of your conversation with him, and when you confront him about the fact that he's clearly making shit up, here's what he had to say in defense of himself.
Well, again, that's sort of subjective, right? Isn't everyone sort of, misrepresenting themselves in every way, right? It's highly subjective, right? And you have to understand that in the world where people use, even like the president of this country uses Twitter and creates falsehoods every day, right? You have to think to yourself about, okay, how do we then quantify the degree of guilt that you can do, right?
So basically he's arguing because Donald Trump is a liar and that sometimes people misrepresent themselves on the internet. On the internet, nobody knows if you're a dog, is basically his argument. It's okay for him to falsify all of his credentials and lie about the research that he's doing.
I mean, that was kind of the one time when he really seemed earnest and made a good point. I mean, we're living in a new era where, people are realizing that lies don't matter as much as we thought they used to. I mean, if somebody can kind of build their entire business career on lies and misrepresentations and then, become the leader of the free world, what's to stop this kind of charismatic, well-dressed serial liar from, warping his credentials into being, this medical luminary.
Now, I don't want to let myself off the hook here. I want to be held accountable for how this guy got on the show. When I saw that study at the NIH, I didn't realize it wasn't published originally by the NIH. It was just republished at the NIH website. And that is more permeable than I assumed it would be, or than I knew it would be. Is that not true?
I'm not sure how it got on NIH. I have to look into that. But it was published on a forensic journal. There's a lot of misconceptions around studies, and I spoke to one of the founders of Retraction Watch, which is a watchdog for academic studies, and he said even the peer-reviewed ones are, they're a filter. They're not, a seal of approval. I mean, it doesn't prove that that this is
right. Someone can falsify their research, submit it to peer review. There's been lots of cases where people, that's why we talk about science needs to be replicable. There's lots of cases where people push their research out in the world and it is peer reviewed and studied. And then when someone tries to replicate the results of that study, they find they can't, and the research has to be retracted because there's some flaw, either unintentional in their methodology or intentional. They were cooking it or lying about it or making shit up. And that's why you sometimes hear about things being retracted after further studies are done. So it's not like something being published means, oh my God, this is the truth on the tablets, come down from the mountain, unassailable. Like, you publish it so people can sail it, so people can try to tear it apart. And that's how you find out whether something is actually true or not, when it withstands the test of time and the test of further study. And so I'm not saying that, I had somebody on because it was in what I thought was a peer-reviewed publication and on the NIHS and therefore credible and therefore absolutely the truth. But I had him on and I took the study at face value, and I took him at face value because I thought, if this study is published, even if he's, maybe lying about the data or he misinterpreted his own data, that he is who he says he is. At the very least, he is who he says he is if he's published. But you can't even rely on that, it seems. And to me, that kind of makes my head explode.
Yeah, it was difficult for me to fact check a lot of these things because there are institutions that, for HIPAA reasons or, private reasons, they can't share this information.
Because I do feel really bad, listeners. I feel bad that we had somebody on the show who was lying about who they were and may have been lying about having done this research at all. And the conclusions that they came to can all be fucking fabulous bullshit. And I don't like to have bullshit or liars on my show. I like to be the only bullshitter on my show. Thank you very much. And I'm really, I appreciate, Jennings, what you've done here in looking into who this guy was and who this guy claims to be. And obviously who this guy is not. We'll be pulling down this episode, and in future, if someone's published, the assumption never was that what they published is absolutely the last word. What they published is an observation and some conclusions, and there will be further study, and we'll see if it stands the test of time. But the assumption was if they were published, they were who they said they were. And I can't even make that assumption now, and I won't again.
I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy to hear that some good will come of this and that people will, be more careful. I mean, in my industry as well, I mean, this guy, a lot of journalists are probably going to have to issue corrections after this article comes out.
Well, we're issuing a correction right now. We will be pulling down the interview that we did with Damian Sendler, and we're going to erect some filters in the future and not make the assumption we made about Damian Sendler about anyone else. So, Jennings Brown, you write for Gizmodo. The piece, we're speaking before the piece is published, but where can people who are interested in reading your takedown of Damian Sendler find your piece?
The article's on gizmodo.com. And if you have any tips for me, you can email me at jennings.brown@gizmodo.com. If you know anything about Damian or anybody else who's doing some interesting or unusual stuff in therapy or the spiritual world or anything like that, I'd like to hear about it and look into it. Yeah,
and always beware of what sounds too good to be true, or it sounds like it's just somebody trying to tickle your tits. Because this study was just such Savage Lovecast bait. I don't know if he wrote it for us or wrote it in hopes of getting on this show. That seems like a lot of effort to go to just to get on my dumb podcast. But it really was low, slow, and over the plate, and very tempting for us because it was a topic that we continued to talk about and still continue to talk about. And that was part of the trap that we walked into, and we are going to make every effort not to fall into that trap again. Thank you so much. Please go read the piece at gizmodo.com about Damian Sendler. Thanks again, Jennings, for the work that you've done.
All right, thank you.
Looking to switch up your cooking routine? Make healthy habits delicious this spring by learning to cook at home. Blue Apron, they make it easy to choose from a variety of recipes, including vegetarian meals. I was never a cook. The most I ever made was toast and tea. I could boil water and brown bread. That was it. But I actually kind of dig cooking now. Blue Apron helped me get there, walked me through recipes step by step, and exposed me to delicious foods I wouldn't have thought to try and certainly would never on my own have attempted to make. With Blue Apron, the hard parts are done for me. Cooking isn't a burden anymore. In fact, it's actually kind of fun to learn new kitchen skills with each meal. Because of me and my husband's hectic schedules, we felt like we had no other choice than to go out and eat out more than we wanted to. But with Blue Apron, we actually have time to cook a delicious, wholesome meal instead of relying on takeout or running out. Blue Apron's chef-designed recipes include amazing specialty sauces and premium ingredient blends that would otherwise be difficult, expensive, or time-consuming to source, to go out there and find on your own, or to make. The Test Kitchen's whole goal is to make dinner accessible, exciting, and delicious. To start making delicious, brag-worthy meals at home without the hassle, try Blue Apron. Check out this week's menu and get $60 off when you visit blueapron.com/savage. That's blueapron.com/savage. Blue Apron, a better way to cook.
Hi, Dan. I am a cisgendered male. I am calling about my husband. I love my husband. We've been married for about 4 years and together for 7. We have an open marriage, but my partner typically likes to only engage in threesomes, as he's uncomfortable with the idea of me being alone with someone else. We've violated these terms of agreement many times in the past. I more than he. I significantly more than he. I think my husband is incredibly sexy, but now I can't even get an erection when we're alone together and I'm, asked to top him. I noticed that if I'm having sex with a stranger alone, then it's no problem. Am I bored? I don't think so. I mean, I just want to have mind-blowing sex with my partner again. Yes, I'd like to have sex with other men occasionally alone, but I myself am uncomfortable with even asking for that again from my husband because I see how uncomfortable it makes him. I'm trying to accept this as maybe a price of admission. I just want to be able to top my husband again. Dan, please help.
So I don't want to shrink you. I don't want to put you on my imaginary couch, but seems to me that right now there's this thing you want to do. You want to have sex with other men alone. And it also seems that your husband sometimes wants to have sex with other men alone. You say that you have an open marriage and the agreement was threesomes only, but you have both violated that agreement. So there's something that you both want that violates the agreement that you both made with each other. You say that you want it more. I'd be interested to get your husband alone and ask him how he feels about that. He wants it too, sex on his own with other guys, just as you do. But right now, your husband represents, psychologically, perhaps erotically, the reason you can't. You can't do this other thing that you also enjoy and may be very important to your sense of sexual fulfillment and sexual self-expression, which is to get with and occasionally top other men. And then there's your husband and he wants you to top him and you want to top him, but all he represents to you erotically in that moment is impossibility. Why you can't, not why you can. And maybe your dick is punishing him and punishing you because you guys haven't confronted this conflict in your relationship and you're attempting to dance and fuck around it. And I would encourage you to confront it directly and stop dancing and stop attempting to fuck around it because it's not working. You aren't capable of getting hard when the time comes to fuck your husband. And that's something that you need to address directly and with honesty. And I think renegotiating the terms of your open relationship may be part of that agreement. Now, everybody doesn't get everything they want. Your husband may have very legitimate reasons why he wants the outside sex to be something that you two do only together. So only threesomes. And you're going to have to find a way to make topping your husband as exciting for you as topping those other guys, those strangers. So I would ask you, what are the circumstances when you top those other guys, when you top strangers? Not in your bedroom, not in your house. I assume you're somewhere else. Maybe just you and your husband getting somewhere else. You and your husband heading to a public sex environment. You and your husband going to a bathhouse if you like that kind of environment. Not everybody does. I don't. But maybe you guys do. Go to the bathhouse, get the room with a sling in it with a door, close that door, fuck each other in this strange place. Your husband will never be a bit estranged, but you can take your husband someplace strange. And that may, being in that sexy environment, being in a place where you can hear other people fucking, that may give your dick the boost it needs. Also, something that can give your dick the boost it needs, pills. Boner pills. They're not just for people who physiologically have a hard time obtaining or sustaining an erection. They also help people who sometimes psychologically have a problem obtaining or sustaining an erection, as they say in the ads. They can get you over the hump. They can get you back to humping the husband. And then once you've done it a few times with the pills, thanks to the pills, you'll find yourself doing it again in the absence of the pills. But work on making sex with the husband as exciting as sex with these strangers, which means not just falling into bed with each other after a long day of carping about housework and bills and taking care of the lawn. That means really intentionally, just like when you find somebody strange, you're on Grindr, you're going out, you're searching through the apps, you're looking for this person and landing them. You have to earn and land each other to make sex with each other as exciting and sexy as sex with some stranger. And that means getting someplace else with him, with the same person, with this guy that you're in love with and have been in love with for 7 years and been married to for 4. Make sex with him as much of an adventure as sex with a stranger can be, to the extent that it can be, because he's still going to be your husband. But mix it up, and you may find yourself just as excited to get back in his pants and back in his ass as you are to get into the pants and asses of new and different guys. We talk a lot on this show about body issues, getting fit, finding a way to stay healthy and active no matter what your ideal body type or size is. OpenFit is bringing you something that makes it even easier to never miss a workout session, lose the commute to the gym, and let the workouts come to you. OpenFit takes all the complexity out of losing weight, if that's your goal, or getting fit in some other way. It's a brand new, super simple streaming service that allows you to work out from the comfort of your living room in as little as 10 minutes a day. Everyone's bodies are different, and OpenFit gets that. That's why it is personalized to your needs with custom-tailored original content. OpenFit classes are led by some of the most effective and engaging trainers in the world that know how to get you results. Working out doesn't have to be stressful or add complexity to your life. Just press play and work out on your schedule. 600 seconds with celebrity trainer Devin Wiggins packs the fat-burning, muscle-building, and body sculpting benefits of much longer sessions into a fraction of that time. View on your computer, web-enabled TV, tablet, smartphone, and Roku. You can lose weight if you want to, flatten your abs, shape your body, and look and feel great. I personally like to work out, helps to keep me sane, and I've made it a regular part of my life, and I genuinely look forward to it. With OpenFit, you can change the way you work out when you text my code SAVAGE to 303030. You can embark on a fitness journey personalized just for you. Again, text my code SAVAGE to 303030, 303030, and start using OpenFit for your path to a healthier life. That's Savage 303030. Right now, during the OpenFit 30-day challenge, my listeners get a special extended 30-day free trial membership to OpenFit when you text SAVAGE to 303030. You'll get full access to OpenFit, all the workouts and nutrition information totally free. Again, just text SAVAGE to 303030.
Oh, hi. This is someone calling from the Pacific Northwest. I identify as straight, but my husband does identify as bisexual. And for 15 years, we were monogamous, but we've recently opened up our relationship. My husband, being bisexual, does have interest in having sex with men. Me identifying as straight, I don't really have any interest of doing anything else. Except for being monogamous. So there is kind of like a weird power dynamic has kind of opened up in our relationship because of that. And even though I have given my husband permission to be open, and we are now a non-monogamous couple, the thing that I personally am dealing with is that it's hard to accept the fact he is having new experiences and new relationships. And it did initially revitalize our relationship, which is great. But I realized that revitalization does not last forever. And I'm kind of at this point where I'm like, when does the benefits of his new relationships, like the benefits of the fun and excitement he's having, how important is that to the kind of hurt and sadness I'm feeling? Because, I'm home with my 6-year-old son where he's off having these fun relationships. I don't really know where the equity lies. I don't know really how to get over the sadness. I have a lot of confusion right now because I want to be GGG and I want to accept where our relationship is going because we were monogamous for 15 years. But I don't know. I really don't know how to deal with this new heartbreak.
For your newly open marriage to work, it's really got to work for both of you. And I think based on the details that you shared, it may be that your husband has lost sight of that in his excitement after 15 years of monogamous behavior to finally get back on the dick. So you need to have a chat with him, and I would be happy to give him a call and have a chat with him myself if you wanted to sick me on him. You need to have a chat with him about how you make this work for both of you, because if he is running off and not just occasionally having sex with other men, but having other relationships and ditching you at home with your small child, and you have become his roommate and nanny and not so much his sex partner anymore, that's a problem. And it's a problem not just for you at home with your sadness and your 6-year-old. It's a problem for him because if you're miserable, that will ultimately sabotage your marriage. And presumably he doesn't want this marriage to fall apart. And I would hope he wouldn't want this marriage to fall apart because not a lot of people can sign off on an open relationship. Not a lot of women out there, talk to the bi guys of the world, not a lot of women out there are cool with their husbands being bi, cool with their bi husbands, if their husbands are out to them about being bi, having male sex partners in addition to the sex that they have at home with the wife. And so your husband has a very valuable thing, a very worthwhile thing, a good thing going in this marriage to you. And he needs to be careful. You say you've recently opened this relationship. He needs to be careful that in his excitement, he doesn't lose sight of your needs, of your feelings, of your emotional security, of the primacy of this relationship, his relationship with you. And so he's got to slow his roll. He's got to climb off the dick for a minute or climb onto the dicks a little bit more slowly or space them a little bit farther apart. And lavish some time and affection and attention on you and gratitude. He should be incredibly grateful that you are able to accommodate him and all of who he is sexually and allow him to be everything he is sexually and remain his wife and remain partners. But again, that's going to fall apart if you are angry or resentful or miserable and unhappy. All that said, you recently opened your relationship, and it sounds like you opened it at his instigation. I talk about people who are poly under duress, PUDs. I talk about people who are in open relationships under duress. Usually when somebody opens a relationship because they're poly or they just want to open it up, and poly is a kind of openness, but openness isn't always poly. It sounds like you guys are trying to do the poly thing if he's not just having sex with other people, other men, but having relationships with them. You're doing a bit of the poly thing. You're a PUD, poly under duress. Most relationships that open because one person wanted it and the other person gave in. The other person might have agreed intellectually or agreed to open the relationship because it's the only way to save the relationship. And they are, like you, poly under duress. Most people who are poly under duress either get out of the relationship in time because poly doesn't work for them, or at a certain point, poly begins to work for them. And the under duress part goes away. They're no longer PUDs. They're just PUZs. They're just poly. Right now, it's not working for you. What's it going to take? What does he need to do to make it work for you, this non-monogamous relationship? Maybe it's limited to openness right now. You don't want him to have relationships with other people. Maybe it's a more occasional thing. He is the parent of a small child, not just you. You aren't just the parent of a small child. He is too. And if he isn't living up to his responsibilities as a parent and sharing those responsibilities in an equitable fashion for you, he's going to fuck up his relationship. He's going to fuck up his marriage. So if you can adjust the settings, if you can tweak the dials so that the openness isn't causing you so much resentment because it isn't so constant, there aren't other relationships, he's not as distracted, it might begin to work for you and you might move from PUD to PUH. But that can't happen if he doesn't know the risks he's running right now. If you haven't expressed to him how unhappy you are, not with the openness, but with the pace of the openness, not with the openness, but with the neglect of you, the neglect of his responsibilities, that you can understand. Allow that, yeah, you were excited. You got out over your skis. You bent over your skis a little bit. And, you were running around in a way that made me feel abandoned. And you need to adjust that. You need to dial that back. If you value me, if you value your family, if you value your marriage, You need to dial that back so I am more comfortable being in this open relationship with you. And you want to be in a successful open relationship with him. You wouldn't have opened up the relationship if you didn't want it to be the success. You were trying to set him up for failure. So as with most things, you need to have a conversation with your partner. You need to express to him why you are unhappy. And you need to open his eyes to the consequences, to the risks he's running, and what he may lose if he can't strike a balance between his responsibilities and his love and affection for you and your sex life with him and these outside sexual contacts that you are willing to allow for so that he is happy and fulfilled. Good luck. All right, before we get to your response calls, some of your tweets. Mari Naomi tweets, I'm so grateful to the writers and podcasters whose words keep me company as I ink page after page of my graphic novel. I would otherwise be quite lonely. Shout out to @Scalzi, shout out to @YourWrongAbout, shout out to @FakeDanSavage, who'll be keeping me and my wobbly Pete company for the next few days. Happy to keep you company, Mari. JHartLA tweets, subscribe to the Magnum, #Savage Lovecast this week, mostly because I was tired of hearing about how much @FakeDanSavage hates the post office, but really glad to hear a fascinating conversation with @JohanHari1012. Thank you for subscribing, Joel. Thank you to everyone out there who subscribes to the Magnum edition of the Savage Lovecast, which is twice as long, no ads, more guests. Go to savagelovecast.com to subscribe. And finally, that Mina girl tweets, getting coffee in the hotel lobby, and I suddenly hear, she's fucking the shit out of you. You're fucking the shit out of him. And I'm like, what the fuck? Then I realize people are looking my way. Seems somehow I hit play and #Savage Lovecast started playing from the phone in my back pocket. Oh, Mina girl. What's that expression? Sorry, not sorry. I'm kind of sorry about that, but I'm kind of not sorry about that. Hope it wasn't too embarrassing. All right. If you want me to read your tweet on a future episode of the Savage Lovecast, be sure to use the #Savage Lovecast. And now your response calls.
Hey, Dan. Calling about episode 644 and the woman who was worried that her partner was disgusted by continuing to fuck her after 5 minutes after he came. And I thought you and Nancy were spot on in terms of helping her think about centering her own pleasure and not worrying about his. But I guess I just also wanted to add that I don't think disgusted people maintain erections. I've never experienced that. What I have experienced is that my partner is so fucking sexy that after I come, I stay hard. So I just want to propose the idea that her pleasure and her being so turned on and into it just fucking broke through the refractory period and made your partner turned on and want to keep going. So good job.
Hey, Dan, this is a call in response to the guy who wanted to know how to squirt more. I've noticed if I jack off every day or every other day, I can shoot to barely past my belly button ring. But if I go a week without jacking off, I can easily shoot to my chin or mouth. So maybe if that guy goes a little longer between ejaculations, he might be able to squirt better.
Hey, Dan, from 644, in response to the bisexual male who can't be rough with his serious girlfriends who he has serious feelings for. I'm calling because I align with him in so many ways. Bisexual here, and also have had trouble being rough with my serious girlfriends who I have serious feelings for. They want me to be more rough, but I struggle to do it. I cherish the tender sex with them. I'm an animal and can be a total dominant alpha when I fuck other guys. But when it comes to my girlfriends, I struggle. It just takes work, man. Keep working harder. Some things you can and should do are have very good communication with your girlfriend, specifically about what kind of alpha rough stuff she wants. And you got to tell her during the act to tell you when you've gone too far so that you can keep pushing the boundaries. Smack her ass harder, pull her hair harder, use harsher, nastier words up until she says, whoa, whoa, that's enough. And then you now know the limits within which you can play, and you're going to start to love it, and she's going to love it. And yeah, you can do it, man. Try harder. Be your girlfriend's alpha. And in the meantime, keep exploring that cuckold stuff, because that's hot too.
And we're going to leave it there. 206-302-2064 is the number here at the Savage Lovecast. If you'd like to record a question or a comment for a future show, give us a buzz. 206-302-2064. I will be in Portland, Oregon on March 15th for Savage Love Live at Revolution Hall. Go to savagelovecast.com and click on events to buy tickets and to find out where else Savage Love Live is coming. And the Hump Film Festival is in LA and Long Beach this week. Go to humpfilmfest.com to buy your tickets. And again, please follow Hump Film Fest on your social media and help us spread the word about our Dirty Little Porn Film Festival when it comes to your town. And our brand new film festival, Spliff, a festival made by stoners for stoners, will be in Seattle, Portland, and San Francisco, and Denver this spring. Go to spliffilmfest.com to get all the info and buy your tickets now. Follow me on Twitter at FakeDanSavage. Follow Jennings Brown on Twitter at TJenningsBrown. And check out his podcast, The Gateway. It's an investigation podcast into a spiritual guru/mental health charlatan that would appeal to anyone intrigued by fraudsters like Damien Sendler. Check it out. And a quick note of thanks before we go. I have been in Los Angeles for the last 5 weeks and recording the Savage Lovecast at Earwolf Studios. I want to thank all of the engineers who've helped out: Jordan Duffy, Sam Kiefer, Brendan Burns, Devin Bryant, and Colin Anderson, and also studio manager Matt Apadaka. Thanks to all of you for helping to keep the Savage Lovecast coming. And that Savage Lovecast, of course, is produced by Nancy Hartunian and me and the tech-savvy at-risk youth, and Nancy. We'll all be back at you next week on an installment of the Savage Lovecast.